Have you ever felt someone you care about pull away even when everything seems fine? You reach out, hoping for connection, but they stay distant, reserved, and almost unreachable. It's confusing, frustrating, and sometimes heartbreaking. You start wondering if they even care or if your efforts mean anything. That's the reality of being involved with an avoidant personality. They care deeply, but their minds are wired to retreat when emotions get too intense. It's not that they don't love or appreciate you. They simply have a way of protecting themselves that keeps them from fully showing it. Now, most people think the solution is chasing, proving themselves, or constantly reassuring the avoidant. But here's the truth. Nothing you can force or demand will truly melt an avoidant's defenses. They aren't swayed by pressure, dramatic confessions, or constant attention. What actually works is subtle, intentional, and often invisible. It's a shift that comes from your own energy, your presence, and the way you hold yourself in their world. It's about creating a space where they feel safe enough to let their walls soften, not by pushing them, but by existing as someone steady, confident, and emotionally grounded. In this video, we're going to explore the psychology behind that shift. I'll break down the 5 key ways that your behavior, mindset, and subtle actions can quietly disarm even the most avoidant personality. You'll learn why your calm confidence, respectful distance, genuine appreciation, fully lived life, and light, honest vulnerability aren't just attractive, they're transformational. These aren't tricks or manipulative tactics. They're principles grounded in human behavior and emotional patterns. By the end of this, you'll understand why avoidants react the way they do, how you can influence that reaction without chasing or forcing it, and how to stay grounded while still inspiring connection. You'll see that melting an avoidant isn't about changing them. It's about creating the conditions where they naturally want to come closer. Imagine seeing someone gradually soften, lean in, and open their heart, not because they were pressured, but because your presence made it safe to do so. That's the power of this one subtle shift. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover together. The first way to truly soften an avoidant is through calm confidence, the kind of presence that doesn't panic, overreact, or chase. Avoidants are naturally attuned to emotional energy. They feel tension, uncertainty, and pressure intensely, and it often triggers them to withdraw. When someone approaches them with desperation, neediness, or emotional turbulence, it usually makes them pull back even further. But when someone demonstrates calm confidence, it sends a completely different signal. It says, without words, that you are steady, grounded, and capable of holding your own space without collapsing into anxiety or overcompensation. This isn't about arrogance or appearing unbothered. It's about inner stability. It's about living your life fully, pursuing your goals, and maintaining your composure even when the avoidant is distant. They notice subtle cues. The way you respond calmly to delayed messages, the way you handle challenges without overreacting, the way you maintain your routine and personal growth without obsessing over them. These actions, small as they may seem, quietly demonstrate that you are emotionally independent and not relying on their approval or attention to feel whole. Avoidants are often caught between desire and fear. They want connection, but closeness can feel overwhelming, threatening, or suffocating. Calm confidence doesn't crowd them. It doesn't demand anything, and yet it communicates a strong, unspoken truth. Being with you is safe, and your stability is a mirror of emotional security they secretly crave. Over time, this creates an internal shift. They start noticing you in ways they couldn't when there was chaos or uncertainty. The walls they have built around themselves don't need to defend against your presence because your energy signals that you are not a threat. Practical examples of calm confidence include handling silence with patience, smiling instead of fretting when they pull back, or engaging fully in your own life instead of waiting on them. It's visible in small gestures too, a relaxed posture, steady eye contact, and measured, thoughtful responses. Avoidants pick up on these cues intuitively. They feel the difference between someone reacting from fear and someone responding from strength. The beauty of this approach is that it is entirely under your control. You don't need to manipulate or coax them, you simply hold your center. And as avoidants witness this calm, confident energy consistently, they feel a subtle pull towards you. It's not dramatic, it doesn't happen overnight, but slowly their internal resistance softens. They begin to test the waters, lean in cautiously, and wonder why being around you feels different from the tension they used to. Your calm confidence becomes the silent force that melts walls they thought were unbreakable, creating space for connection on a level they can actually tolerate and desire. The second way avoidants start to soften is through respecting their space. Avoidants are wired to feel threatened when they perceive emotional pressure. Every call, text, or demand for reassurance can feel like an intrusion, triggering their instinct to withdraw. This is why one of the most powerful things you can do is step back and create space without giving up your presence entirely. Space doesn't mean coldness or detachment. It means giving them room to process, reflect, and observe you without fear of confrontation or obligation. When you respect an avoidant's boundaries, you are essentially saying, I trust you to engage on your terms, and I trust myself enough not to collapse in your absence. This is incredibly disarming to someone who's used to emotional push-pull dynamics. Avoidants often expect chaos, emotional intensity, or frantic attempts to bridge distance. When they instead encounter calm patience and respect, it forces a subtle internal recalibration. Suddenly, they notice that being near you doesn't have to trigger anxiety. They can breathe, think, and even desire closeness without fear. This approach works in both small and large ways. On a small level, it can mean sending messages only when appropriate, not demanding immediate replies, and letting conversations flow naturally without pressure. On a larger scale, it involves living your life fully, maintaining your routines, passions, social connections, and goals. They see that your energy isn't dependent on them, and this mirrors a type of freedom and confidence that they unconsciously admire. This mirroring is critical. Avoidants are drawn to people who live fully without clinging because it shows that connection can exist without suffocating intensity. The subtle tension created by space is what makes avoidants curious and receptive. When you aren't chasing, they start noticing what they're missing: the calmness, the stability, the sense of security you provide simply by existing in your own centered way. Space also allows them to reflect on their actions without being confronted directly. They begin to recognize the consequences of their distance and the value of connection in a way that doesn't feel like coercion. Respecting space also encourages them to take small steps forward naturally. Likes on posts, brief check-ins, or playful gestures may appear first as they test the waters cautiously. These micro-actions are an avoidance way of reconciling their fear with desire. By giving them room, you allow them to come closer willingly rather than pushing them toward connection, which often backfires. Ultimately, respecting space is not passive. It is a strategic, emotionally intelligent approach. It communicates trust, patience, and understanding while gently challenging their avoidance patterns. Over time, avoidants begin to feel drawn toward you, not out of obligation or pressure, but because your calm respect creates a safe environment where their emotional walls can slowly soften. This is the second psychological key. Distance paired with confidence melts resistance, allowing avoidants to engage without fear, curiosity without pressure, and connection without anxiety. The third psychological key to melting an avoidant is subtle appreciation, acknowledging their efforts, qualities, and presence without overwhelming them with emotional intensity. Avoidants are naturally attuned to pressure, and overt praise or constant validation can sometimes trigger discomfort rather than connection. What works instead is understated, genuine recognition that communicates awareness and respect. It's not about flattery. It's about noticing the small, meaningful things they do and reflecting that back in a calm, authentic way. Avoidants often struggle to feel seen, especially in intimate relationships. Their walls were built over years of learning to protect themselves from disappointment or judgment. When someone subtly acknowledges their thoughtfulness, patience, or even a small action they took, it touches a part of them that craves recognition but fears exposure. For example, saying something simple like, "I noticed how patiently you handled that situation. It really mattered," can quietly bypass their defenses. It signals that you see them fully without demanding more from them emotionally than they can give in that moment. Subtle appreciation works because it's indirect yet deeply meaningful. Avoidants respond to signals of validation that feel safe and non-intrusive. It doesn't push them closer with pressure, it invites them in with gentle awareness. By highlighting their value calmly and sincerely, you give them a sense of connection without overwhelming their natural caution. Over time, these small acknowledgments accumulate, creating an emotional foundation that melts resistance and opens the door to deeper engagement. Another key aspect of this is timing and consistency. Avoidants are sensitive to extremes. Overdoing praise can feel manipulative, while neglecting recognition makes them feel invisible. The trick is to remain observant and intentional. Notice the effort, the patience, or the subtle gestures they make, and respond in ways that feel natural. Avoidants subconsciously track these signals and begin to associate your presence with calm validation rather than stress or pressure. This is a profound psychological shift because it challenges their internal narrative that closeness always equals discomfort. Subtle appreciation also interacts with other dynamics, such as space and calm confidence. When combined, it forms a triangle of influence that gently draws an avoidant inward. They notice not just the recognition itself, but the context in which it is given. They see someone confident, emotionally grounded, and respectful of their boundaries, appreciating them authentically. It triggers curiosity, reflection, and eventually a desire to engage more meaningfully. The beauty of subtle appreciation is that it works invisibly and organically. It doesn't demand immediate reciprocity, it doesn't force connection, and it doesn't manipulate feelings. Instead, it softens emotional walls gradually, allowing the avoidant to feel safe, seen, and valued. They begin to wonder why being acknowledged in this calm, sincere way feels so good, and without realizing it, their internal resistance starts to melt. Over time, they lean in. Not because you pushed, but because you created a space where they can safely lower their guard. Subtle appreciation is the third key psychological tool. It's quiet, consistent, and deeply human. It melts avoidance not through intensity, but through the gentle power of being recognized, understood, and respected in a way that feels effortless yet profound. The fourth psychological way to soften an avoidant is through living fully in your own life. Showing them that your world doesn't revolve around them and that your happiness, energy, and growth continue independently of their engagement. Avoidants are drawn to people who are emotionally self-sufficient because it removes the pressure they often associate with intimacy. They crave connection, but the idea of dependency or constant emotional demand triggers fear and retreat. When they see someone fully engaged in their own life, it quietly captures their attention and sparks curiosity. Living fully doesn't mean ignoring them or being cold. It means prioritizing yourself while still caring. It's about pursuing your passions, maintaining your routines, nurturing friendships, and showing consistent emotional stability. Avoidants notice the difference between someone who is waiting anxiously for them and someone who is thriving despite their distance. That subtle contrast is magnetic because it challenges their internal narrative that closeness always equals pressure. Your life becomes a mirror reflecting calm, competence, and resilience, the qualities they subconsciously admire and desire. This approach works in ways both obvious and subtle. On the obvious side, it's seen in actions like attending social events, finishing personal projects, or laughing and enjoying moments without needing their validation. On the subtle side, it's in the way you handle communication, replying when convenient rather than reacting immediately, showing patience without frustration, and demonstrating boundaries without resentment. Avoidants sense these cues on a deeper level. They notice the calm confidence, the self-respect, and the emotional independence that isn't demanding attention, but isn't indifferent either. One of the reasons this is so effective is because it introduces a gentle tension that naturally pulls avoidants in. When your world moves forward, regardless of their engagement, they begin to wonder what it would feel like to be part of it. They see a life they cannot control or possess, and that freedom is paradoxically attractive to them. It challenges them to confront their fear of vulnerability while also making them realize that absence has consequences. they risk missing a connection that is stable, fulfilling, and emotionally grounded. Living fully also subtly communicates boundaries. Avoidance can sense when someone is willing to step back without resentment, to prioritize their own well-being without giving up the relationship entirely. This balance of care and independence encourages them to engage thoughtfully rather than impulsively, creating a space where they can lower their guard safely. They begin to take small steps towards you, curious about the balance of closeness and freedom that feels so different from what they've experienced. Ultimately, the fourth key is not just living your life for yourself. It's demonstrating through action that your value is inherent, not conditional. Avoidants melt not because they are forced to feel, but because your calm, independent, and fulfilled presence quietly disarms their internal defenses. They start to lean in naturally, drawn to stability rather than chaos, safety rather than pressure, and connection rather than fear. Living fully is powerful because it is both self-affirming and influential. It strengthens you while inviting them in. The fifth and final way to truly melt an avoidant is through consistent emotional reliability. Showing them over time that your responses, presence, and care are dependable without being demanding. Avoidants are hyper-aware of unpredictability. Sudden emotional swings, inconsistent attention, or manipulative behavior triggers their instinct to retreat. When they encounter someone who is steady, predictable in their emotional tone, and consistently respectful of boundaries, it quietly dissolves their resistance. This isn't about creating rigidity. It's about being a safe emotional anchor in a world where their trust has been tested countless times. Emotional reliability is subtle. It can be as simple as replying thoughtfully instead of reactively, honoring your promises, or staying calm when they withdraw temporarily. Avoidants notice patterns, not words alone. If you remain consistent, balanced, and patient, they begin to internalize a sense of trust that allows them to explore connection without fear. They don't feel pressured, and yet they feel seen, respected, and safe, the combination they rarely experience in relationships. Over time, this reliability becomes a magnet. They begin to wonder why your steadiness feels so different, why being around you doesn't ignite anxiety, why your presence is simultaneously comforting and unobtrusive. Consistency also interacts with their fear of unpredictability. Avoidants often expect disappointment or instability. When you consistently show care in a calm, non-needy way, it challenges their internal assumptions. They start to believe that connection doesn't have to be a gamble. It can be a choice made safely. This realization is transformative. Slowly, the walls they've built around vulnerability begin to soften because they see a pattern of trustworthiness they can rely on. They start leaning in because the risk of rejection feels lower, and the emotional reward begins to outweigh the instinct to pull away. Another crucial aspect is that emotional reliability reinforces all the previous steps. Your calm confidence, respect for space, subtle appreciation, and fully lived life all gain additional power when paired with consistency. Avoidants recognize the cumulative effect. They notice that you don't overreact, you don't chase, and you maintain your integrity no matter the emotional push-pull. This reinforces the sense that your connection is not conditional, manipulative, or fleeting. It is stable, inviting, and safe. The magic of this approach lies in its quiet strength. Avoidants melt not because of grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but because they see someone who is emotionally present yet independent, caring yet composed, steady yet deeply human. Your consistency demonstrates that closeness does not have to be frightening. It can be safe, rewarding, and even desirable. Gradually, they begin to test the waters more openly, lean in without fear, and experience connection in a way they've avoided for so long. Ultimately, emotional reliability is the final piece that transforms curiosity into trust, hesitation into engagement, and avoidance into connection. It's not about forcing them to change or breaking down their walls. It's about providing a consistent, grounded mirror of stability that allows them to voluntarily lower their defenses through patience, consistency, and reliability. Avoidants learn that connection doesn't have to hurt, and in that realization, their resistance slowly melts away. Understanding the avoidant mind isn't about changing them. It's about recognizing patterns, setting boundaries, and maintaining your own emotional balance. What's important for you to take away is this. Your value isn't tied to their push or pull, their hesitation, or the speed at which they open up. You are not responsible for their fears, but you are in control of how you respond, how you show up, and how you protect your heart. Every interaction, every step you take in your own life subtly shapes the dynamics without demanding or chasing. By staying grounded, confident, and consistent, you create a space where connection becomes safe and desirable, not pressured or forced. The avoidant isn't drawn to perfection, nor to drama, nor to desperation. They're drawn to authenticity, emotional steadiness, and calm clarity. Remember, this journey is as much about your growth as it is about understanding theirs. The more you prioritize your own emotional health, passions, and boundaries, the more magnetic and influential you become in the eyes of someone who struggles with closeness. You're not manipulating or strategizing. You're simply living in a way that honors yourself while demonstrating the kind of connection that feels safe to them. The power in this process comes from your awareness and intentionality. You observe patterns, respond with care and calm, and maintain your life fully. Over time, the avoidance walls soften, not because of pressure, but because they see the stability, respect, and emotional maturity you embody. So focus on yourself, your growth, and your energy. Let your presence be a quiet force that naturally encourages closeness without fear. When the timing is right, when their internal struggle reaches a tipping point, they will lean in. And at that moment, you're not just meeting them, you're doing it from a place of strength, clarity, and self-respect.